Okay, this is our first slide. Hopefully this gives you a clue that if you put a magnet near a coil and move it, that you generate a little electricity. So that was Faraday's first generator. Then he figured out when you put two coils together, and especially put some iron in between them, you generate either a voltage up or a voltage down. Notice it takes two wires on both sides. You can't do it with one. Okay, this is an example of a pretty good size, uh, pretty much step down transformer. There's no wires on it, make it easier to see it. About the size of, maybe half the size of a carport. Okay, this is what a power line in the backyard looks like when it's not pretty. So the power comes in off these lines, three phases, which is a common way to transfer power. And then each of the little squiggly lines comes down to a little transformer. Okay, two wires going in. I don't know where the other one is. It comes up from ground, and then your house then picks up its own two wires, and that's what the coil looks like coming into your house. 120 volts on each side of central, which is 240 total. So the thing I'm bothered about is that these things don't have the other side of the transformer is earth. And then we get one single phase going on out to the boonies, and they pick up the other side of their transformer the same way. Just stick your pole in the ground and hope it works. It does. Okay, so how come there aren't any wires along the grounding wire, or better yet, the lightning protection on the western part of the United States? Well, here's what a power line looks like. Notice there's the three phases I was talking about. This happens to be an example of one that does have lightning protection wires on it, but not a great picture, but best one I had. One more example, three phases, no ground. No ground wires with these. Oh, there's some, sorry, exception. So I suggested it might be lightning. And I picked up a picture of what the lightning density is in the United States. And it turns out in the western part of the US and up in Canada, it's pretty minimal. The purple is like none. You get over here in the south and southeast, and it's pretty high. A lot of lightning. And a different picture of the same thing. Seems like from the Tropic of Cancer, the Tropic of Capricorn, it's pretty severe. But when you get outside those ranges, it lightens up quite a bit. So that's just my suspicious answer. Maybe you don't have to run the lightning wires on the power lines because they're using the ground for the return line. So I was pretty fascinated by the big difference. I went to a East Coast trip, and the power system is the wires running between houses is so different. Just totally threw me off that I decided I would put this in my talk. Anyway, it's really heavy duty wires close to the trees, and of course, a lot of trees. Heavier population, obviously. So here's an example of what the power lines look like on the East Coast. Uh-oh. Let's see, how do we do this? They're not spread out. Three wires spread all the way across, and there's a ground wire always. So they're all close together with this funny looking insulator. Oh, there's a big view of it. So a heavy wire and three power lines. The view close up. I discovered after I did some research that the guys that make these insulators happen to be named Hendricks. No family resemblance, whatever. Here's a truck pulling the lines in. That's the heavy harness cable, or they call it anyway, the heavy cable that draws holds the other ones up. This is terrible. And that's a really high density power distribution system. That's a lot of power coming through there. And these are each 3 phases and pretty high wattage. Oh, I got to close this, I guess. And this one. And move to the next slide. So you wonder how these get assembled, maybe. I did. How do I get that up high enough? There we go.
The Hendrix spacer cable that we strung was 336 and it's insulated. To string that conductor, we have to string a messenger first, which is another 336 cable. When you string that, you have to upgrade all your poles. Just setting those H2 poles in the terrain we're at was a task. Once we got those poles in, then we got to string the messenger. So when we had to do that, we had to bring in all the Maui crews of about 4 crews total on Maui. We pretty much spread out and we cut the job into 2 pieces because it was a total of 20 spans.
These poles were already in.
And then the second 10. So once you get the messenger up, you have to install these rollers. This is what is gonna bring in your conductors. But all in all, I mean, it was pretty easy to string. It was quick. Seems like it's gonna last a very long time. It should cut out all these little outages that we've been having over there. I'm just real anxious to see when the first storm hits.
So that's just what it looks like close up. And here's this bracket that happens to be made by a company called Hendricks, but that thing's 2.5 feet across. And obviously the strength wire is up here. It's no longer a lightning protection. It's heavy enough to carry these three cables. And then, oh, I just put a note in here. It's 5.5 pounds for one of those things. So those guys carrying half a dozen of them, or I mean a dozen of them are around. So here's 15 kV is fairly typical of what would be close to your house. That thing's a pound per foot, inch diameter, give or take. And the higher voltage lines are almost 2 inches in diameter, 1.5 pounds per foot. So that gets to be pretty heavy wire or cabling system. So then I thought, okay, how do they keep the trees away from the power lines? Sorry, supposed to. Just one guy up in that helicopter. I have no clue whether they kill the power. Maybe it depends on the pilot.
The aerial saw is the tool of choice, where access is limited and worker exposure is a concern. Suspended directly below an MD-500 helicopter, the 800-pound aerial saw is carefully guided by the pilot and features 10 powerful rotating blades powered by its own auxiliary engine. Aerial side trimming delivers results in the price range of mechanical tree trimming in a much shorter period of time, and for a fraction of the cost of conventional climbing.
Okay, so in the next few years, the electric vehicle industry is going to create a major issue with the utilities across the country because we don't really have enough wires to support it. So there's generally a lot of growth anticipated and some money allocated, including a $3 billion investment in the 69 kV lines, which are they're fairly close to the house system, spending just over the next 4 years. A lot of wildfires, fires cause you to want to put the power lines underground, which are a whole lot more expensive. Obviously, you minimize tree cutting and stuff if you can do that kind of thing. Somehow put your lines in a safe place if there is such a thing. So here's a funny picture, I thought. Anyway, this is of the entire grid, the electric grid in the United States, and it shows pictures of the power lines from low voltage to high voltage. And I'm a wee bit colorblind, but we could just say generally the dark lines are the higher voltage lines. But you can tell where people live, and where the industry is. So there was a study done in what is it, a couple of years back now, of just the 71 sites suggested in New York and Massachusetts to cover that area increase in power consumption and putting up electric vehicle charging stations. This is through the time 1945 through 2045. Here's a general idea of how much consumption they're expecting. This would be like 5 megawatts now, and in 10, 20 years, they expect it to be as high as 45 megawatts, just as in those 71 northwestern states. And to give you an idea, a small town is 20 megawatts. That's half of what the expectation is in 10 years. Anyway, it's an interesting slide. And here's a little graphic of what a new service station would look like now. Instead of a petrol stop, this is for just electric. So where's my mouse? Electric, just for the automobiles here, mid-range vehicles, short haul trucks here, and then put the 18-wheelers out here, and have these things like both sides of the freeway, both directions, obviously. Then here's this great big transformer, and if everything goes right, there's a big utility line, a 375 or 500 kV line fairly close by to power this thing, because it's not low power. I guess leave it at that. Just that kind of a warning that the demand for the higher or better distribution of electric power is coming, and they're not ready for it. Okay, this one's fun. That is all of the power and energy in the United States. It's better viewed when none of it, we turn off all the layers so that you don't see all that. It's totally overwhelming. So for example, just for fun, let's turn on nuclear, if I can find it again. Uranium, where'd it go? Nuclear power plants. Okay, they're a funny little symbol like that. But anyway, they should show now. You see there's one in Arizona. Okay, then we go down, and because I'm interested in electric power transmission lines, we turn this chart on, and it doesn't do it in color apparently, just this one shade, but you can, with this map, go anywhere you want in the country and say, okay, where's the nuclear power plant and where are the electric power lines connected to it? Patrick is interested in solar, so we want to, I don't know where solar is on this list, but it lists all of these solar plants. Let me see if I can find the solar power plants. There's that many solar power plants already hooked up in the system. This is already custom made for my family now, so we talked about Patrick. Wind power plants. None showing here, strangely. That's interesting. So anyway, that's what this website allows you to do, is look at all this stuff. You can zoom in, you can see how big the utility line is, who owns it, what its capacity is, and that kind of thing. So, okay, end of, any questions? The off button.